What's up, everybody? Channel Pup here, and I was just on my way back from London on the train, watching a little bit of entertainment on YouTube, and I came across a video by Tex, where he was talking about this article on CBR.com about the 10 ways that the theatrical cut is better than the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And I saw it, and I was in absolute disbelief at some of these points. And Tex did a really great video on it, but I also feel like I could offer my own perspective as well. So check out Tex's video, check out this video, and let's go forward. Now, I'm gonna say this right now. If you prefer the Joss Whedon theatrical cut of Justice League to the Snyder cut of Justice League, while I don't understand you, it's fine. That's your prerogative. That's completely up to you. I've said otherwise in the past. I said in the past that if you prefer the Whedon cut or claim you prefer the Whedon cut, you're just seeking attention. I'm not going to stick with that. I am going to say, you know, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I saw Shardamus Prime's opinions on, like, the Whedon cut versus Snyder cut thing, and his kind of basis was that, like, superheroes are kind of his candy, and, like, the theatrical cut was a bit more candy-like than the Snyder cut, which I get, I guess, like. So you could ask, Pup, why are you just making a video on some journalist's opinion on a website? Well, it's just that their points are really that bad and they take that many L's that I just felt like it was a fun idea. So let us venture forth into the great unknown. Okay, so here we are on CBR.com. Justice League, 10 ways the theatrical cut is better than the Snyder cut. Justice League was a critical and commercial disaster. However, the Snyder Cut turned out to somehow be worse than Joss Whedon's theatrical cut. Okay, I'm intrigued. Disagree, but I'm intrigued. Okay, so in 2019, filmmaker Zack Snyder had to step down from directing duties on the, at the time, upcoming Justice League film due to a horrible family tragedy. Afterward, the film was taken over by Joss Whedon, who had successfully written and directed Marvel's superhero team-up movie The Avengers and its sequel quite a few years earlier. Okay, you were just explaining things. The subsequent Justice League film, however, was a critical and commercial disaster. Luckily for certain fans, many of whom were behind massively toxic harassment campaigns, HBO Max released a 4-hour Snyder Cut of Justice League to their streaming service. However, that version turned out to be somehow worse than Joss Whedon's theatrical cut. Right, so, off the bat, I'm getting a lot of cope and seethe from this, many of whom were behind massively toxic harassment campaigns. No, that was a very small minority, and newsflash, fandom bad. Like, you know, also water wet. I've made a video in the past of saying that Snyder fans are some kind of exception to the rule. It's just bullshit. Every fan base has its toxic section. Like, and just to paint, you know, most Snyder fans, or many of whom behind, like, why is this even necessary? Like, is your article about the toxicity of fandom? No? So why is this necessary? Get rid of it, you fucking hack. That's a joke. But just get rid of that. So, 10. It isn't overly long, referring to the Whedon cut. The runtime of Zack Snyder's Justice League in and of itself isn't inherently a problem. Okay, fair enough. So they're fine with long movies. That's whatever. Avengers Endgame was also over 3 hours, which didn't hurt the quality of that film one bit. No, the problem with Zack Snyder's Justice League instead is that it's languid pace, its boring monochromatic cinematography, and the awful borderline video game worthy CGI. Is this guy blind? Because, like, you're complaining about the cinematography in... Okay, so for starters, your complaint isn't that it's long, like the headline suggests. Your complaint is that it's got a slower pacing, which I didn't find to be that slow paced, to be honest. I mean, that's, I guess, a subjective thing. But, like, complaining about the cinematography in Zack Snyder's Justice League when the Whedon cut looks like... Well, just look at that red-orange final battle thing. And then, like, to complain about the CGI in Zack Snyder's Justice League when the Whedon cut straight up has the Uncanny Valley realistic Steppenwolf and Superman's mustache gate. Like, this is an L. That's a fucking L right there. You could not back that point up any worse. The length only exacerbates and amplifies the film's already existing faults, and while the theatrical cut of Justice League was way too short, it's much preferable given the choice between the two extremes. Well, that's whatever. 9 out of 10. Superman got to be Superman. I'll be intrigued by this. One of the biggest issues with Snyder's vision is the fact that it had no room for Superman. Sure, Superman existed in the Snyder films, but in the three films he directed, Superman never once got to be the optimistic paragon that fans are used to. And while that made sense in Man of Steel, as it was about Clark coming to terms with his powers, it's maddening that Superman would remain dour and unfun for almost 10 hours of runtime across 3 long films. However, Justice League's theatrical cut, by contrast, showcased a fun, caring Superman who jokes around and goes out of his way to save civilians. It might have only been for 5 minutes, but it was a good 5 minutes that proved Henry Cavill was perfect casting when given the chance. This kind of aggravates me a little bit because I feel like the Whedon Cut's version of Superman very much feels like a caricature of that happy, optimistic Superman. I mean, put it this way, Superman is an idealistic character. Don't mistake that for optimism. He believes in the best of mankind. You can interpret that as optimism, but ultimately, he's still a guy that lives in the real world, and like, he's not always jokey and jovial and stuff. The Snyder Cut does bring us a happier Superman than what we get in Batman v Superman and Man of Steel, obviously, because the character is probably under the most duress he's ever been under in those films, which makes sense. Superman would not be reacting to the things happening to him in BVS and Man of Steel with a happy little grin on his face. It just wouldn't be happening. But Superman still retains his belief in the betterment of mankind, and he still acts in humanity's greater interests. So you do have that idealistic vision of Superman. Superman is not all smiles and jokes and charm. He's an idealistic character. That's the point of him. And I think Zack Snyder captured that just fine. Now, if you do prefer this kind of funny caricature of Superman that we got in Whedon's Justice League, all power to you, but I don't think you should try and invalidate the one that Snyder gave us. 8 out of 10, Steppenwolf looks better. Are you fucking blind? Up front, the villain Steppenwolf, voiced in both versions by Ciarán Hinds, looks awful in the theatrical cut too. Okay, you admit that. His big CGI body too rubbery and fake, looking to be menacing, and his face exists right in the middle of the uncanny valley. Okay, you accept that. Again, the problem isn't that Steppenwolf looks good in the theatrical cut, it's just that the spiky, overly shiny, somehow even more rubbery looking Steppenwolf in the Snyder cut looks worse. Seriously, Snyder's Steppenwolf looks like what would happen if the XX Extreme 90s were a person, only that's giving his design way too much credit. For starters, Zack Snyder didn't design Steppenwolf for this, they have other design. But anyways, I think Weta did an absolutely phenomenal job on the CGI of Steppenwolf, and I feel like this really dismisses that. As a lot of people say, I would hate to be a VFX artist on the internet because people are such dicks to VFX artists, and I thought it looked convincing. I thought it looked like you could just reach out and touch the guy. Like, I thought it was amazing, and to say that, you know, it looks worse than the Whedon version, which looked like a fucking Monopoly figure, like, yeah, no, like, that's a fucking L. 7 out of 10. A lot of the humor still works. There's been much discussion about how Whedon's jokey dialogue didn't mesh well with Snyder's more dour and operatic tone in the theatrical cut, and that's true. Whedon's cut is an absolute tonal disaster, but nonetheless, it's still preferable to Snyder's self-serious wannabe Wagnerian pablum. Okay, you know big words, good for you, buddy. Because for all the cringe jokes that don't really work, i.e. the Flash's awful brunch runner, and the scene where he falls on top of Wonder Woman, there are a lot of humorous scenes that do work, such as Aquaman's lasso of truth, and Superman and the Flash getting ready for a race. I think the lasso of truth scene, I get it, I get why people like that, and I think it's okay, but like, you named 2 moments, one of which is an after credits, when your headline says a lot of the humor still works. So not 2 jokes, a lot. And like, the Snyder Cut wasn't without its humor anyway. I don't get why people try to convey that Snyder is humorless. In fact, like, I get the point with Batman v Superman and Man of Steel to a degree, but the Snyder Cut had a lot more humor, and I thought the humor landed much better than it did in the Whedon Cut. I guess comedy is subjective after all, but like, we are definitely in agreement about the Flash's awful brunch runner and the Wonder Woman boob scene. So, okay, 6 out of 10. Doesn't unnecessarily kill Cyborg's dad. There are many genre cliches that should be left in the past. While Snyder's Justice League avoids many tropes, it definitely falls face first into one as Joe Morton's Dr. Silas Stone, Cyborg's father, sacrifices himself to save the mostly white cast, something actor Morton did 30 years ago in Terminator 2. That's how pervasive the trope is. It becomes even more egregious when one realizes he was the only other major POC cast member in the film besides Ray Fisher's Cyborg, since Kiersey Clemons' Iris West is only in the one scene. Okay, so they're trying to make a point about race, and I don't really have a dog in this race because, like, I'm not black, but, like, here's kind of my perspective is, like, okay, the film killed a POC actor. That's the agenda you want to approach this with, right? You want to approach this with the agenda of racial equality in Hollywood. Okay, good on you, guy. You're brilliant. But here's the thing. The fucking Whedon cut down pretty much all of the POC characters, cutting out Kiersey Clemons' Iris West entirely, cutting out what's his name? The Atom guy. They cut him out. You know, like, they cut, like, Ray Fisher's role down massively, and not only that, but according to Ray Fisher, Whedon was a racist dickhead on set. So it's like, I don't think you can really leverage the racism point against the Snyder Cut in defense of the Whedon cut, because it's just, come on now, like, fucking, come on, you have the basic 5 senses, use them. So, next up, Wonder Woman reveals she never gave up. One key sticking point with fans about Snyder's DC Extended Universe is the revelation that Wonder Woman, aka Diana Prince, gave up on humanity after World War I and only decided to return to superheroing after the introduction of Doomsday at the end of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. However, in the Justice League theatrical cut, Diana tells Batman that she never truly gave up being a hero, which is more in line with the Diana from the comics. In fact, Patty Jenkins would reiterate Whedon's point about Wonder Woman's continued superhero career in Wonder Woman 84, or Wonder 84, there you go, professional journalism. Most likely of Jenkins' own volition, separate from Whedon, but that film still nonetheless feels more in line with the theatrical cut's version of Wonder Woman than Snyder's, even if unintentionally. Yeah, I think that's why we don't like Wonder Woman 1984. One of the plethora of reasons, anyway. I don't think Wonder Woman is any less of a hero for hiding out for a little bit, you know? Like, I don't really have a dog in this race, to be honest, because I don't know that much about Wonder Woman in the comics. But I personally feel like the way they represented Wonder Woman in Justice League's Whedon cut was, oh, Wonder Woman has silly feminine concerns about bringing back Superman, but she's glad he's back. Yeah, now she's glad. Ha, silly woman. That's how the Whedon cut played out, you know? I honestly thought, like, the Whedon cut really damaged Wonder Woman's dignity. Like, this might be a fair point and all, but, like, it's one decent point in a sea of shit for Wonder Woman in the Snyder cut. The Whedon cut, rather. Sorry. Snyder cut's great. 4 out of 10. Darkseid isn't a weak punk. Alright, well, Mr. Writer, you go up against Darkseid then. Let's see how that works out. To be fair, Darkseid isn't in the theatrical cut, but that's preferable to what Snyder does with him, because in Snyder's cut, viewers see Darkseid during a flashback where he gets his butt kicked during the war for the mother boxes. It doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in him as a threat when the first time we see him he has to be carried away, defeated, and almost bleeding to death. Some comic fans will complain that it's not actually Darkseid, it's Uxas before he gains his mantle. However, a film should stand on its own and not need ancillary... I'm sorry, I'm not really good with these bigger words. Material to make sense of what's going on. It's okay for your main villain to get beaten up by literal gods who no longer exist. And now he's facing off against the Justice League, who aren't literal gods. I feel like that sets it up fine. Like, the whole, phew, we were really lucky we had the old gods with us. We don't anymore, and now he's back. That's fine. That's absolutely fine as a standalone thing. So, I don't get what you're saying here. And again, weak punk, you go up against him then. You can't, he's fictional. But like, if he was real, go up against him and we'll see who the weak punk is. 3 out of 10. The Snyder Cut's R rating is excessive. Now, there's nothing wrong with R-rated superhero films. Deadpool, Logan, The Punisher, and even Snyder's own Watchmen film all benefit from the more extreme rating. Is R really an extreme rating? But it's weird to have a film based on the Justice League of all things that's so needlessly violent. And to what end? Snyder himself said that he doesn't believe in sanitized violence, and because bloodless PG-13 action doesn't allow audiences to see the consequences of said violence. And that certainly makes sense. However, that argument falls apart when you realize he's talking about Wonder Woman throwing humans bloodily into walls. At that point, that's just not true to their characters. Wonder Woman and Superman are not Deadpool and the Punisher. It's not the violence that's the issue, it's who's perpetuating it that is. So is the R-rated, like, I feel like change it to the heroes feel too violent as opposed to the R rating being excessive. Like, again, I don't think this article realizes what it wants to say half the time. Like, I guess it's fair enough for your own perceptions of these characters, but Wonder Woman has proven to be a pretty lethal warrior in the past. I think the criticism that she's a bit too violent, fair, but like, how is that necessarily a defense of the Whedon cut, though? You didn't even mention how this compares to the Whedon cut. You're now just at the point of ragging on Snyder's work. So, okay, alright, fine. 2 out of 10. Martian Manhunter's reveal makes no sense. Comic book Easter eggs are fun, there's no denying that, but the problem with the reveal that General Swanwick, played by Harry Lennox, is actually the Martian Manhunter the whole time has nothing to do with him appearing in the Snyder Cut and everything to do with how little it makes sense. Like, with how powerful Martian Manhunter is, why did it take this long for him to do anything to help people? And more egregiously, it ruins a great scene between Diane Lane's Martha Kent and Amy Adams' Lois Lane by revealing Martha was the Martian Manhunter the whole time. What was the point of that? I kind of agree. I agree with the whole part about Martha Kent and Lois Lane. However, the question of why did it take him this long to do anything to help people, he literally worked in the military. He was doing things on humans' terms and acting as a human on Earth. So I think that's completely fair. That's the way he chose to do things. He's still helping. 1 out of 10. The post-apocalyptic ending was awful and unnecessary. Contrary to popular belief, Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max didn't film many new scenes, as most of the extra reportedly $70 million was given to finish editing and finalizing unpolished VFX shots. However, there were 4 minutes of filmed footage specifically shot for HBO Max, which was the post-apocalyptic epilogue, and it's terrible. From wonky VFX to overly claustrophobic cinematography and atrocious dialogue, including Batman's goofy F-bomb and Jared Leto's Joker's reach-around joke, it's just awkward and unnecessary all around. I think there's a point to be made about it being unnecessary. I personally think the best point to end Zack Snyder's Justice League was when Superman pulled his coat open. And that is, I guess, one thing the Whedon cut has on it. But, like, still, I thought this was a little glimpse into what Justice League 2 could have been. It was kind of pitching that Snyderverse thing, and I think the scene was pretty good. But if you don't like it, I suppose that's fair. So overall, yeah, I don't think this article knows what it wants to say half the time, and just things like this and just like the point about, you know, monochromatic cinematography and awful borderline video game worthy CGI. I'm just like, what movies did you watch here, guy? You're taking a lot of L's. But yeah, that's the article. As always, don't go harassing anyone that made the article or works for CBR. But let's just have fun mocking them in this video. So yeah, that's that.
So what do you guys think? If you enjoyed this video and you want to support more like it, be sure to hit that big, beautiful subscribe button. And of course, in the description below are links to different social media feeds, including the Patreon. If you're feeling extra generous, like the following people, who are JK Strife, Marcus Ward, Sirius the Skeptic, Biotin Arts, Mr. SP, David 20 Covers, Sergio, George is Lost, Legendary Ray Ray, Cheesemaster769, Adam Myers, and Fayalan Schwarzentrau. Thank you guys, you are the best of the best, but as for the rest of you, thank you so much for watching, guys, and have a great day.